Hi again, everybody, and greetings from Newport, Rhode Island, home of the American Conference Football Media Days. Today and Tuesday, I'm Dan Hoard alongside Bearcat head coach Tommy Tuberville. Coach, I've got an itinerary here that has you listed for 9 TV interviews today with ESPN, CBS, and others. And you know as well as I do, in addition to talking about your football team, you're going to be getting a lot of questions over the next couple of days about the Big 12 and the possibility of Cincinnati and other schools in this league going. How are you going to handle that issue with the national media?
Well, there's nothing to really talk about. It's all speculation, and it's a well-known fact that every team in the country that's not in the Power 5 would love to be in the Power 5. But we know nothing to report or tell. There's going to be other teams up here that's also going to be talked about, several teams in our league. So we can't control it. I can't control it. I'm just looking forward to a football season coming up and our players reporting tomorrow and being in a beautiful place like this. Look in the background here. How about this place? This is awesome.
Nice ocean breeze. The birds are chirping in the background. This is definitely a great setting for this event. At this event last year, Cincinnati was picked to win the league championship. It didn't turn out that way. You finished 7-6. In retrospect, was that pick a problem? Did some guys buy into the hype?
No, I don't think so. I think it's just how everything plays out. We knew the conference, number one, was going to be a lot tougher than what it's been. Temple was better, obviously. Houston, the previous coach, had really recruited a lot of good players. Memphis had a quarterback that everybody now knows it's a good football player. So it's kind of a perfect storm, but we had a good football team. Probably it's the best. I know it's the best football team that, talent-wise, that we had since I've been at Cincinnati. We were enthused that our defense, of all things, was going to be much better because we hadn't been very good. And then first 3 or 4 weeks, we lose 3/4 of our defensive backfield. And we're playing kids that we were hoping to play 10 or 12 plays a game, and they were actually starters. So injuries played a little bit of a toll, but we made too many mistakes. We turned the ball over, had too many penalties, and we averaged 37 points a game. But you can't play defense like we've been playing and turn the ball over on offense. If you do that, I don't care how good a football team you got, you're not going to win many games.
You were a minus 19 in the turnover ratio last year. That's the difference between finishing a game over 500 and competing for a league title. How do you fix that?
Well, we've talked about it and worked on it in an off season of putting them in drills where they've got to really concentrate, don't lose their concentration, don't get overconfident. A lot of it has to do with experience. Guys that have more experience tend not to make mistakes, but it all goes back last year. We had penalties and we had turnovers, and a lot of the turnovers turned into touchdowns. As you said, we were minus 19, and you want to be at least plus 5 to 10 to have the chance. If we had been plus 5 or 10 last year, we'd have won 11 or 12 ball games. That's usually what happens, and we've got to correct that. We'll correct that. We've really talked about it. The first order of business is recognize your problem. If you can do that and you get it over to your players and get them to understand it, then you got a chance to improve. Because if we turn the ball over, it doesn't make any difference how talented you are. You're not going to win a lot of games.
You brought 2 seniors to this event this year, Deshaun Bond, your center, and Eric Wilson, one of your linebackers. Last year, one of the players that came was Gunnar Kiel, and a lot of folks at this event were asking Gunnar, are you going to go pro at the end of the year? As it turns out, he got hurt. He's back with the Bearcats this year, and last week, you said that at least right now, he is number 3 on the depth chart behind Hayden Moore and Ross Trail. Is that strictly a reflection of the fact that Gunnar was hurt during spring football?
Yeah, and Gunnar's got the talent to be our starter. But when you can't be evaluated in spring like he was, and he practiced 1 or 2 times, he had to pull a muscle in his back. That's no fault of his because he was working hard, he was playing, practicing well, and he's done everything we've asked in the last 6 months. He's ready to go. He's ready to practice, and he's going to challenge for a position. But as we come out of spring practice, which we have to make a depth chart, Hayden Moore was first, and I think it'll be a tremendous battle. Ross Trail's a heck of a football player. He just doesn't have the experience, but Gunnar will be in the battle. He'll be in the mix. He's next 2 weeks will tell the tale on our starting quarterback. So whoever's going to be our starter is going to have to impress the coaches going into our first couple of scrimmages, and after that, we've got to get ready for the season.
When do you anticipate naming a starter?
I'd probably say in 2 weeks after we start. That'll be after our second scrimmage. I don't like to scrimmage 2 weeks before the first game, so it's a short period of time before we play that first game. But we've got to get a first-team quarterback that's with all the first-team receivers, running backs, offensive line to work our technique and time down, get our timing right. And I would probably say in a couple of weeks we'll have that roster filled.
The defense was very good in your first year as the head coach. I believe you finished 9th in the country. And then, as you mentioned, it has struggled the last couple of years. You have 8 starters back on defense. Are you confident this is the year that you get back to business on defense?
Yeah, if we can keep them healthy. Our problem has not been over all the starters. In college football, the way people play offense now, it's so fast, it's so physical. You can't play but 3 or 4 plays in a row, then somebody's got to substitute. Our starters have been pretty good until we've had injuries like we did last year. It's the drop-off between the first and second and third teams that we've had problems with. Because as you get down the roster and you get into the season, your backups are going to play as much as your starters. So the thing that we've been working on is more athletes on the field, but get more guys out there that have played, that have had reps, that can make you better. There's always going to be a drop-off between first and second team. That's the reason you have first and second team. But if it's a dramatic drop-off, which we had last year after we lost almost our entire secondary, then we struggled to play defense and get our offense back on the field.
You lost 6 senior wide receivers. Many of those guys are in NFL camps right now. How high is the concern level at that position?
Well, it's always a concern when you start over, and every once in a while you do that. Last year was just one of those years. I knew this time last year going into the season, I knew we were going to have a very good offense and we were going to have very experienced receivers and we can score anywhere on the field. Well, we didn't disappoint anybody. We did that. The problem is we just turned it over in some of our close games, and we could very easily won 4 more games just how we played offense. But it all goes back to one thing. You can have the receivers and the running backs and quarterbacks, but if you can't stop anybody, it doesn't make a lot of difference. So we've got young guys on and that will play receiver this year. Kiel Lewis will be one that people will notice. He played some last year as a 2 freshman. He's one of the better receivers that I've ever recruited, and he's got the pedigree. Now he's got to step up in that starting role. We've got guys that can play. They just have to learn how to be the guys out there first instead of second and third during the game.
With that changeover and the return of Mike Boone and Tion Green at running back, plus a new coordinator in Zach Taylor, will you be more run-oriented?
Well, we'll be balanced, but we'll have a different type of running game. I really enjoyed and excited about what we did in the spring in our running game. Of course, when you got 2 running backs like we have, then obviously that's some of the things that you want to do. You want to create that running game first. It helps your offensive line, helps everything. But we'll throw it 50% of the time, maybe 40% of the time. Could be 60, just depending on what the defense does. But again, I like our receivers. They're just a little bit inexperienced, but I really like our running backs. So that's where we'll start.
Every team is different. Every year is different. Do you have an overall theme that you're going to stress in that first team meeting?
Well, discipline, and not discipline what you'd look at of doing things right off the field. I always want that. But it's doing things in critical situations where you don't have an offensive lineman move and go from 3rd and 1 to 3rd and 6, or you turn the ball over and let somebody run it back for a touchdown 60 yards out. Those are things you can't overcome. So discipline will definitely be tomorrow when we have our first team meeting back on campus at 3 o'clock. That'll be the first word spoken out of my mouth.
All right, you heard it here first, and you are now officially sufficiently prepared for those 9 TV interviews to come.
I'm ready to go. I'm prepared. I've always been ready, but they go by pretty quickly up here.
All right, that is Bearcat head coach Tommy Tuberville, and I'm Dan Hoard. Stay tuned for more coverage from American Football Conference Media Days here in Newport on GoBearcats.com.